Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. Sometimes you look at a page and it feels less like words and more like, well, secret code,
Mhm.
or maybe like trying to find your way around town using only pictures. Well, today we're diving into something that feels very visual, has a history stretching back further than almost any language you hear today, and even let people communicate without understanding each other's speech. It's the fascinating world of Chinese characters. I'm Hari, and I'm really looking forward to exploring this.
And I'm Kimi. It's great to be here. We'll be guiding you through the layers of meaning and history packed into these characters using the material you've shared with us. Our aim today is really to pull out the most compelling ideas from these sources, to give you a clearer picture of this, let's face it, complex script without getting too lost in the weeds.
Okay, perfect. Let's jump right in then. So, one fact from the sources that immediately grabs you is this. Chinese characters are apparently one of just 4 writing systems in all of human history that were invented completely independently. Think about that for a second. Out of countless languages, countless cultures, only 4 times did writing just appear from scratch.
That rarity alone is pretty remarkable, isn't it? The sources put it right up there with ancient systems like cuneiform or Egyptian hieroglyphs, really foundational stuff.
Right. But here's the kicker, the thing that makes it truly unparalleled. Of those original 4, Chinese characters are the only ones still in continuous use today. We're talking over 3,000 years. Those oracle bones, carved way back in the Shang dynasty.
Yeah.
They are the direct ancestors of characters people write right now. How incredible is that kind of staying power?
It really speaks to an extraordinary ability to adapt. The earliest confirmed examples we have, those oracle bone inscriptions from around the 13th century BCE in Anyang. They show a surprisingly developed system. They were mainly used for divination, asking questions, that sort of thing. But their sophistication strongly suggests the actual origins are even older, probably written on things like bamboo or silk that just haven't survived.
Interesting. So, unlike alphabets like the one we're using now, which are based on sounds, these characters work differently at a fundamental level. They're logographs, meaning they generally stand for units of meaning morphemes. And since Chinese morphemes are mostly single syllables, the system gets called morphosyllabic. That difference, meaning first sounds second, is really key.
Exactly. And that core idea definitely shaped how it evolved over time. The early characters were, well, more obviously pictographic or ideographic. You could sort of see the object or the abstract idea in them. But over thousands of years, and through different script styles like clerical script and regular script, they became much more abstract, more simplified, which of course made them easier and faster to write, but sometimes it also hid that original visual link to what they represented.
And as they changed, another really important feature popped up. Most characters ended up being compounds, built from smaller bits. What's often overlooked, I think, is that these components usually aren't just random. They often have specific jobs. One part, the semantic radical, might hint at the character's general meaning, while another part, the phonetic component, might give you a clue about how it's pronounced. Although because sounds change over time, that phonetic clue isn't always perfectly reliable today.
That's a great point. And this flexible system proved incredibly influential. Characters spread throughout East Asia, what scholars call the Sinosphere. Initially, they were used just to write classical literary Chinese, but then different cultures adapted them for their own languages. So you've got Japanese kanji, Korean hanja, and Vietnamese chuhan. And here's a fascinating detail. Nowadays, Japanese is basically the only major non-Chinese language that still commonly uses these characters alongside its own native scripts, the kana syllabaries. Korea and Vietnam mostly switched to alphabetic systems.
Wow. And that widespread, that shared script, led to this really amazing phenomenon the sources mentioned called brush talk. Can you imagine? Literate people from, say, Japan and Korea, maybe unable to understand a word the other spoke, could sit down and have a complete conversation just by writing characters back and forth to each other.
It's a powerful image, isn't it? A unique kind of cross-cultural connection, bypassing spoken language entirely. And jumping to the modern era, you see variations too. Like the simplified characters used mainly in mainland China, Singapore, and Malaysia versus the traditional characters still common in Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Macau. These differences mostly came out of standardization efforts in the 20th century, but thankfully, if you can read one system, you can often figure out the other, more or less.
Yeah, and it's interesting how technology has had to adapt too. You've got phonetic input methods like pinyin for Mandarin, sure. But there are also input methods for computers based purely on the character's visual shape or structure, like the kanji method. It just shows how fundamental that visual aspect still is, even in the digital age.
Absolutely. And one last fascinating point the sources bring up is from neurolinguistics. Studies indicate that reading and writing Chinese characters actually activates additional areas of the brain compared to purely phonetic scripts. Specifically, areas linked to visual and spatial processing seem more involved. It suggests using characters engages our minds in a slightly different way.
So from ancient divination bones to complex computer input and even firing up different parts of your brain. What a journey these characters have had. We've touched on their unique origin, how they evolved, their structure, their incredible spread, and their relevance today.
And through all that, I think we see how digging into Chinese characters gives us insights not just into a writing system itself, but into deep cultural history, linguistic adaptation, and even, well, how our brains process language and meaning.
So maybe here's something to think about as you go about your day. In a world that often focuses on speech and sound-based writing, what unique ways might a system built primarily on shared meaning, regardless of pronunciation, shape thought, culture, and connection across diverse peoples and long stretches of history? Something to ponder.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive today.
Thanks so much for listening.